So take out, if you're using the masking exercise project, take out the EQ8 that exists on the guitar track, because the work's already done for you. I want you to try it yourself. And bring in a fresh EQ8, drop it on the guitar track. We'll put it before the spectrum analyzer so we can see what's happening after our EQ8 has done its work. So the EQ8 is an 8-band equalizer. We used the EQ3 last week, which is a 3-band equalizer, allowing you to adjust the bass, middle and treble levels. Now this equalizer allows us to adjust the levels in any range with up to 8 bands, which are switchable. You can turn them on or off with the orange buttons along here. So I'm going to turn them all off at first, except for the first band, so we can focus on what this guy's doing. And these tabs along here select which band you're actually editing. So at the moment, we're just looking at band 1. Along the bottom of the EQ8 are the 6 switchable filter modes. If you pop out the info view, it'll list them. So we've got a low cut filter. We talked about them last week. A low shelf filter, which is a little bit different. We'll go through that later. A bell filter, a notch filter, a high shelving filter, and a high cut filter. So set this guy. Filter 1 is going to be a low cut filter for now. So what this is going to do is cut out just the bass, the low end, the very low end from this guitar track. So like I said before, we're going to reduce the volume of frequencies in just a specific range, which will allow the bass to be louder just in that range, but while the other frequencies that the guitar occupies are left alone, which will result in giving us plenty of space for both instruments, so they won't be overlapping anymore. You can probably afford to cut pretty high, so have a listen as you sweep up this pass filter. So kind of 200 Hz range is probably fine. You can hear the difference between. So there's a lot of low energy stuff before, and now we've kind of cut it out, which will allow a bit more space for the bass to cut through there without ending up with a kind of muddy sound. Now, the vocals are also fighting for space with the guitar. So if you solo those two tracks, have a look. Okay, so there's a lot. Once again, we've got quite a good deal going on in the 100 to 1K sort of range in the vocals, and similar story in the guitar track. So this time we're going to use a bell filter on the guitar to cut some of this sort of range. So turn on filter number 2. So we're looking at filter number 2 now. Make sure it's set to bell, which is this icon here. Now with the bell filter, okay, it's so called because it looks like a bell. So before, when we were looking at a cut filter, like our filter 1 here, this frequency was the cutoff frequency, below which everything will be cut. Okay, so everything below 198 Hz here is being cut. In the case of a bell filter, this frequency control now refers to the center frequency. So that's the frequency at this point, right in the middle. That's where the action's happening, and then there's a slope to either side of it. So you can change the center frequency with the first dial, then the gain with the second dial, so that's how much the sound is this frequency range is either being cut or boosted. And finally, the Q control determines the shape of the bell. So higher values lead to a narrower bell, while lower values lead to a wider bell. So we want to apply about a 6 decibel cut at perhaps around 420 Hz. Okay, and make it a little bit wider. We'll set it down to around 0.37. So now you'll have this kind of shape here. And have a listen. Okay, so it's cut out a certain amount of the boxiness of the guitar sound, and it should be allowing the vocals to come through a little bit more clearly there. Okay, so we've used the EQ8 now to separate tracks, to create separation, but you can also use the EQ to alter the timbre, or the quality of sound of an instrument. So have a listen to this vocal sample by itself, and then we're going to use a bell filter to boost in a certain area to kind of change the quality of the sound. Okay, so I have a bell filter turned on, about 6 dB boost with a 0.37 Q value, making a pretty wide bell. So it's boosting all of this stuff from about 1 to 10K, and then sloping off to either side. And boosting up here at the top end kind of adds a quality of air to the sound. So have a listen, experiment with this, and you can sweep the filter up and down and see what different qualities it has as you move around the spectrum. Then have a listen to the whole track again. Okay, so before we had quite a muddy sound and everything was a little bit... Everything was quite on top of each other, but now we've increased the separation and we've given the vocals a more airy sort of quality. So finally now, I'm going to put a high shelving filter on the drum kit. So I'm going to boost the kind of the sizzle on the cymbals by turning on, so we're just going to use a single filter in the EQ8, so you can turn off all these guys. Focus on this one. Set this filter to a shelving filter, this kind of wishbone looking icon here. Now this time the shelving filter is quite similar to a cutoff filter, so to a cut filter, but it's more controlled. So if we have a cut filter, everything above a certain point is a high cut filter. Everything above a certain point is just going to be completely cut off, and you can't see it because the graph ends there, but that line continues and continues and continues. So at this point, at 10 kilohertz, it's being cut by around 12 decibels, but beyond that, by the time you get to about 12 kilohertz, it's being cut by, say, twice that, so 30 dB, until you go further on and it's being cut by 60 dB. So essentially it's being silenced. Now that's a cut filter, okay? So everything literally just gets cut. With a shelving filter, you have a bit more control. So what's happening here is that everything above the cutoff frequency is being sort of shelved off. There's a slope, but then it evens out. It doesn't continue down in that same direction. It evens out. So you know everything above a certain point is only being reduced by -6 dB. So consistently a cut of -6 dB. But this time, what we're going to do is boost above a certain level to add some more air to these drums. So have a listen, more sizzle to the ride cymbal. Okay, so you can hear the difference, kind of muffled to nice sort of sizzly quality. Now listen to them all together again. So everything essentially is clearer. So we're using the EQ here to create greater clarity, greater separation in the mix, and also to change the timbre of sound.